Hello everyone, and welcome to another episode of Rumors of Heresy. My name is Zareth, and I've got another battle report for you today, this time against Death Guard. They didn't exist as a codex last edition I played, which was 6th edition. It's been 10 years. It's gonna be interesting to see what they're capable of with their own codex. Probably old hat to a lot of you, but it's very interesting to me. We're playing Take and Hold, as well as Search and Destroy. We get 15, up to 15 victory points per turn with this one, so you can get a lot of them early on. You also have hidden supplies as the mission rule, which means we have an additional 6th objective marker. You can see I just got new objective markers, which are exciting and fun. Nice to get a good upgrade. We also have more painted models on the field, folks. Here are the objectives in unblemished yellow. Brilliant, lovely, unblemished yellow. My opponent deployed first. He had an interesting list because he took allies with him. So he has Nurglings and Rodagus from the Demon Codex. He has 3 different Brigands, which are war dogs from the Chaos Knight Codex, and then he has a bunch of Death Guard things as well, Typhus and some Terminators, and one of the Brigands are in reserve. He also has 1 Rhino with 2 characters, which are called Malignant Plague Casters. Try saying that 80 times fast. He also has 3 Bloat Drones, which I kept calling Plague Drones, which my opponent forgave me, I think. At least he forgave me out loud. He also has a Rhino with 10 Death Guard and 2 characters that have some kind of flamer. I didn't catch what they were called, folks. I'm sure it was something epic. He also had 10 cultists, and my list, we're iterating again, folks. So I have 5 jump intercessors in reserve. I have another 5 jump intercessors ready to jump. We have our Infernus as usual, the 2 big jump units, as well as the Land Raider Redeemer with Blade Guard and Adrax, which Adrax is painted now, folks. We have Intercessors and a Repulsor with Eradicators. Then we have a big unit of 6 Eradicators that are just hanging out on foot. We're trying that today. My opponent and I are both using a lot of proxies, folks. My opponent is using Riptides to stand in for his Brigands, and I'm using all manner of things to stand in for my Eradicators, my Repulsor, and even my Jump Infantry. Hopefully they're going to be clearly labeled throughout this battle report, and that won't be an issue, but I wanted to make sure I pointed it out early on. Now here's a closer look at my opponent's deployment. You can pause it here, but we're not going to spend a lot of time on this shot itself. But you can see he's kind of divided into 2 little groups. The one on the right and the one on the left. Bloat Drones and Rhino with Death Guard on the left, and then everything else on the right. You can see his Bloat Drones here, right on the edge of the board, and the Rhino with the Death Guard and the 2 characters and everything. The cultists had their scout move, so they moved right up, which is actually something I was okay with. I won the roll to go first and got sabotage and no prisoners, which were okay for this mission. Oh boy, this is exciting, like math. In the sense that math builds on itself. We've faced these Brigands before in that Chaos Knights game, and then we faced Rodagus in the Demons game that I played after that. So I know what those do, for the most part. What I don't know about is all of the Death Guard stuff. My opponent told me about a lot of stuff, and he was a great opponent. I forgot a lot of this stuff as well, but the thing that I took from it was very close combat heavy, and it was going to be very unfriendly for Marines because he has a lot of things that do 2 damage a pop and deny my armor saves for the most part. So we needed to be cautious there. I needed to leverage my shooting superiority over my deficit in close combat. The way we're going to win this, however, is controlling movement. That's going to be very important that I get in the middle as quickly as possible. I got first turn, which really helps, and I can really kind of set the stage and set the tone for being able to control where my opponent's going to be and hopefully just start scoring on things that he doesn't have access to. So we're going to go in. If I get a decent roll, I can take out the cultists who got a little too close. The Nurglings are also pretty close, and our secondaries are things we can actually accomplish. We can take out those two teams, and we can also score the max on sabotage. And it's gonna be a good first turn, folks. I also wondered, how is he gonna kill my Land Raider? Let's just jam it up the center. I started by moving everything up somewhat aggressively. I wanted to take and threaten those top objectives and just really give my opponent some trouble. The Land Raider could move into the middle and just sit on the objective there, threatening whatever he had. The Infernus could move up and hopefully fry a few of the cultists. I got a good advance roll, and remember, Salamanders get to advance and shoot because all of their weapons are assault. We also have the Repulsor Executioner in the back, just kind of biding his time because none of his guys are that visible to me. The Jump Intercessors and Vanguard Vets are being a little cautious and cagey, making it so that if the Death Guard want to get out of their Rhino and charge, they're going to have to roll something really impressive to get there. The Eradicators are moving into the middle, and they got a decent advance roll as well, and they can't be seen by anything unless it's towing into the terrain. So everything should be good. The one thing I failed to do, my Jump Intercessors in the building on the bottom should have jumped out of the deployment zone and gone and sabotaged something. They really could have done it, and they just didn't. Or I could have had the Vanguard Vets sabotage something. I did have the Jump Intercessors with the Chaplain up top sabotage the wall they were hiding behind, which seems like a very risky endeavor, but they decided they could do it safely. They promised, and I signed off on it. When we got to shoot, I did end up just roasting those cultists. Even though we only got 4 of our Infernus Marines in there, they rolled a little higher than average to get a lot of shots, and remember, they're strength 6 against those cultists, so they're wounding on 2s, automatically hitting, and the cultists only have a 6-up save, so they all died, and the Redeemer also managed to roast the Nurglings, which is exciting. I got a couple points of damage on Drakkis as well because he was visible, and we ended up getting most of our secondaries. I could have gotten 10 for this one, folks. I could have done it. We killed 2 things, which is very impressive on the first turn. Impressive in the sense that I didn't know if I would be able to do it. Sabotage was very possible for me to get the max on, and I just am not good at secondaries yet. We'll get better at it, but that's something I need to pay more attention to. My opponent got Extend Battle Lines and Overwhelming Force for his secondaries, and he decided to just push on up. He had his Bloat Drone up front, and he charged into the Infernus. He killed 3 of them. The Infernus did nothing against him. Drakkis was just there to sit there and grin out of his stomach, I guess. The Rhino with the Malignant Plague casters just bided its time, and the Brigands shot at the Land Raider. Our Meltas this game were honestly, across the board, for myself and my opponent, were very ineffective, and he caused very little damage to my Land Raider. He did charge it with the Brigands just to hold it in place. You can't see very much from this shot, but he did get out of his Rhino with his Death Guard, and really the thing you need to take from this picture is that my Jump Intercessors on the bottom are lazy. They're very lazy. They are lazy bums. My opponent, as I said, did get out of his Rhino. He gave me a little too much credit. He thought that my Jump Intercessors would be able to, what he called, wrap his Rhino, which means if I had killed his Rhino in close combat, then all of the troops inside would just die. So he got them out instead, which I think makes sense. I wasn't sure exactly what to make of it, but of course those bloat drones are things I don't really know much about. So there's a lot of question marks here, folks. I'm very interested to see what happens, to say the least. My opponent actually scored 5 in extend battle lines, and we're at 5-7 moving in to round 2. I rolled my secondaries and got Assassination and Secure No Man's Land. It seemed like things I could accomplish. Oh man, he got out of his Rhino, which I couldn't believe. I was like, yes! And it turns out he had a good reason for it. He gave me too much credit. He thought that I would know about this, but me being a complete and utter moron at this game demonstrated that he had misread me, and I had no idea. Apparently you can just wrap his Rhino, and if I killed his Rhino in close combat, all the guys can't disembark, so they just die, and it's horrible and awesome. And apparently that's something you can do without being labeled a total jerk. Back in 6th edition, or maybe it was 5th, people tried to do that, and you could, but it wasn't. People got mad. People got angry. So anyways, this turn is a little bit straightforward. I need to kill the Plague Marines. And even though I need to execute well, and I need to stay outside of 6 inches to stay out of his blight zone, like it's this ever expanding zone of stench, apparently, I need to make sure that we execute well and we eliminate those Plague Marines. We also need to take out, and I don't think I have a visual for this, so I apologize. We need to take out that Blight drone that's hurting my Infernus so that we can mess around in that corner a little bit more. So let's see what happens, folks. This is exciting. This is a pivotal turn already in turn 2. Will we break each other immediately or not? So I scored 10 for holding 2 objectives, and now I know we're gonna go a little out of sequence here, folks, because this happens after all of my moving, but I did bring in my 5 jump intercessors and stole my opponent's home objective, which was exciting, and I wanted to give him something else to think about, maybe try to get Drakkis back here or something else. I wasn't really sure what he might do, but I wanted to make it so that my opponent had to make some fairly difficult and challenging decisions. Now, my 5 intercessors here are just huddled into a corner, and the Typhus squad with his Terminators also rapid ingressed, and of course this is still out of sequence, folks, so I do apologize again, but in terms of narrative, I don't think it really matters that much, because these were both squads deployed in opposite corners, and you can see I'm going to start adding these rapid ingress, all the different commands and everything that people are using in my reports. I know that's an important aspect to gameplay. It's just been a lot to try to make these reports, and so we'll be adding those in slowly as part of our production value. I would have always appreciate any kind of feedback, by the way, on my production value, on things that you like or dislike about my videos. Any feedback, as long as it's respectful, is very appreciated. And while we're at it, folks, please hit that thumbs up button if you're enjoying these battle reports. They take a lot of time and effort to make, and I would truly appreciate it. It helps the channel quite a bit, folks. Now, in the middle fight, my Blade Guard went in and blew up the Blight drone. He exploded and killed one of my Blade Guard veterans. The Infernus fell back to make room for the Blade Guard, and of course the really frustrating thing that I honestly, guys, I know I've read this rule, I just totally spaced on it though. He can just heroic intervention. I was like, you can do that? That's one of your like things that you have, one of your commands? And he's like, no, that's something everyone has. I had no idea, and I feel a little dumb, but Drakkis charges in, kills most of the Blade Guard. I very barely am able to kill the Blight drone, do no damage to Drakkis, and now I'm just locked in combat with the stupid sack of slime. Dear Lord, ignorance is not bliss very often, folks. Now you can see here I'm measuring to make sure I'm just outside of 6 inches because I don't want to get into their layers of filth and make all my stats be reduced. So I have everything just in range. The Eradicators are in Melta range so that they cause a minimum of 3 damage per shot. And the Vanguard Vets can do their flaming. The Jump Intercessors are ready to shoot plasma pistols and then charge in. It's all exciting and fun. So we do that. We shoot our shots from the Eradicators, from the Vanguard Vets. I think I used Immolation Protocols with the Vanguard Vets because we do have, they're only strength 4 flamers. They're strength 3 typically. They're hand flamers. They go up 1 because of the Salamander ability, but that all of their strength goes up by 1 within 12 inches. But the biggest part of this, folks, is we do devastating wounds on 6s. And we get it for cheaper than usual because we have a captain in that squad. The end result was I deleted all of them. You can't see the assault intercessors, the jump intercessors on the right hand side in their charge yet, but we got them down to 2 characters, and so when they charged, they actually had to charge both characters. And I did manage to wipe them out. The Vanguard Vets rolled so supremely horrifically against my opponent's Bloatface McGee character, whatever his name is. Oh my gosh, what a terrible, sad, tragic situation, folks. Oh man. And I didn't have any CP to give them +1 to wound or anything. It was a total disaster. I could not believe it. I think I rolled 18 hits and ended up wounding with 1, and he just made a save. It was tragic. So he killed a couple of my guys. We're locked in. I was like, all right, he can't go anywhere. Anyways, I hit the Rhino for a couple points. We're still in good shape, I figured. The Land Raider Redeemer and the Repulsor. I spelled that wrong in the text there, but the Land Raider Redeemer and the Repulsor combined to shoot and kill one of the War Dogs, which was exciting, and it was good. We're towing the objective on the right-hand side. We're controlling my opponent's objective on the top right. We're controlling the middle objective, or the top left objective. We're controlling my own personal objective. If I could score right now, we're even controlling the center objective. I think I control all of them, every single objective on the board right now. So if I could score them when the turn started, obviously we could only get a maximum of 15, but pretty dominant in terms of controlling objectives, at least. At the end of the day, though, we got Assassination because there were 2 characters with the Bloat Guard, the Plague Guard, whatever they're called, Plague Marines. And we also got Secure No Man's Land, no problemo at all, for a total of 17 total points in secondary. So we're off to a hot start despite my lack of sabotage. My opponent got Cleanse in overwhelming force. So his retribution was brutal. He brought in his 3rd Brigand to help delete my assault intercessors, my jump intercessors in the middle with the Chaplain, and the 2 malignant plague casters in the Rhino hopped out onto the objective and were able to roast all of them. Another thing I didn't realize was that the light drones were able to jump out of close combat, and so he left combat with my veterans, he fell back, and then he was able to regroup and just charge them again once my Vanguard Vets had been shot up a little bit. His other bloat drone was able to charge in on my Eradicators, and I was like, oh, this is awesome. I'll just wipe him out right now because I have 8 total Melta shots, and we should be able to get a few nice hits on him. At least we can get some good damage on him. And so we overwatched. Even though we have hit on 6s, we get to re-roll them because he's a vehicle. At the end, I think I did actually hit one, but he just saved. No, I failed to wound. Even though I get to reroll wounds, I didn't even get a wound on him. So, pretty sad. He actually didn't do that well against the Eradicators. The extra toughness was nice in this case, so we were able to make a little bit of something happen. But, oh my goodness, what a waste of an Overwatch. It was very anticlimactic. Now, I didn't get a screenshot, apparently. I didn't make one of what happened in the background of this. Radagast killed Adrax and the Blade Guard veterans with his flamer thing and his tongue, probably disgusting, probably just his eternal stench. It is quite oppressive and impressive, and they died, and it was very sad. So at the end of the day, my opponent did not score at the start of his mission. I should have pointed that out. He didn't score anything on his primary. He did manage to get 5 for overwhelming force, bringing his total up to 10, but at the end of turn 2 for him, for anyone, you would hope you have way more than just 10. So there's kind of a sad state of being for my opponent. Now, I ended up rolling Storm Hostile Objective, which was going to be very challenging to accomplish and bring it down, which kind of fit into what I was trying to do anyways. I did score 15 for holding 3 objectives, which is the max for primary, pushing us up to a 42-10 lead going in to the top of turn 3. Well, I have to say, the clap back for my opponent was brutal. I had no idea that those stupid bloat drones could fall back and then charge again. Not that that would have made an enormous difference, but it did make a substantial difference on some levels, as in my Vanguard veterans getting shot at and then charged a second time, and the Eradicators failing to do any wounds to the other bloat drone was really sad. The fact that he brought in his Warhound on the left corner as well means we're not going to take that objective. We're just not going to keep it. And we're also not going to get back my home objective, which my opponent has summarily slaughtered my poor Intercessors. I never mentioned it until now, but he did. He managed to get the charge and killed them all. And now he has my objective. And so what we need to do, folks, is abandon the left side. Like, make things as difficult and challenging for my opponent as possible, but essentially just control the right-hand side and cling to our points advantage, because we have an enormous advantage and head start. And if we can just cling onto that, get as many secondaries as possible, we could probably win this thing running away. But the fact that he was able to basically take out all of my stuff on the left-hand side means my opponent's going to be able to score a lot. And if we don't kind of shift our focus on how we're going to win, as in, we don't need to kill everything, we just need to kill enough stuff that he stays off my back and we can maintain our lead, we're going to be okay. To do that, we have got to kill Radagast. We have to kill him this turn, basically. And I have a lot of tools for that, as you'll see, but we've got to kill him, and it's got to be right now, or we're in serious trouble here. So the Repulsor Executioner drives up and parks and disembarks, as in disembarks, the Eradicators, and the 2 laser cannons from the Repulsor Executioner just roast and delete Radagast. I didn't even need the stupid Eradicators, though. I mean, it's nice to have them there because the 4-up invulnerable save on Radagast is too unpredictable, but the 2 laser cannons going through and just killing Radagast was kind of nice. We got to find Adrax's corpse. That was gross. The Infernus were then able to turn around and get a little lucky. They roasted the Brigand that was in close combat with the Land Raider, and they even did 4 wounds to it, which is fairly lucky, although also fairly inconsequential. All the other shooting I had at that Brigand was mostly non-existent. You could see that the jump Intercessors were ready to charge in and try to do some mortal wounds if they needed to on Radagast. They didn't need to, thank goodness. They were all excited that they didn't have to. They were telling me, thank goodness we didn't want to earn our paycheck today, which I don't blame them for. And So this is where we're at, folks. Typhus and the Terminators hold the objective on the bottom left. My Land Raider Redeemer was able to see and shoot both of his Plague Casters that had been roasting my poor jump intercessors in the top left, and he killed both of them, which meant that he couldn't control the center objective because the Land Raider was too many OC compared to the 2 Rhinos that were currently contesting it, and the characters kind of had brought it over to his side for the OC differential, but now we get it back, so that was exciting. And so Rodigus is dead. The Brigand is just locked in combat, and it seems like for the most part the fight is over. So I scored 25 on my primary so far up to this point, which is pretty good for turn 3, and then I was able to bring it down, which was 6 on Rodigus, because he's 22 wounds. I didn't get Storm Hostile Objective. That was nigh impossible for my situation, so I turned that into CP, and then my opponent decided, you know what, let's just call it. You've got it running away, even if he can come back, because he still has a lot of models on the table, to be honest, that are fairly threatening. He didn't want to have to go through it because at the end of the day I had such a monstrous victory point advantage, he just wouldn't be able to catch up. So he didn't bother to draw his secondaries. He did score 10 points for controlling 2 objectives. He didn't get that middle one, so that was nice, and we just called it there, folks. So we ended up winning 48-20. I don't know what the end would have looked like, and I don't think it's worth saying what should have been or whatever. I think that just makes enemies and annoys people, but it was a well played game. My opponent was awesome, really fun guy, really helpful, and I love facing people who have a good attitude about the game and want to play it well, and he was really helpful on a lot of smaller rules that I have struggled to grasp up to this point. So really nice guy, and really appreciate the match, sir. So what did we learn? First off, I just need to keep focusing on secondaries. Obviously, that is the number one thing, guys. The number one thing is secondaries. And so we could have gotten that ambush on turn 1. I didn't, and I need to beat myself up over it a little bit, because that's something I need to get to pound into my brain. I was very impressed with bloat drones, very awesome. And as a side note, and this isn't shade for my opponent, he was actually just, the reason he proxied them is because he hadn't purchased any of the war dogs yet, because he wanted to see if they were any good. I'm just not sold on those brigands, guys. Yeah, they hit on 2s, but man, both of the games that I faced them in they just weren't that impressive, and for something that huge, they are so bad in close combat. It is impressively bad in close combat. And then I don't really love the walking eradicators. It did surprise my opponent that I was able to run with them, advance with them and still shoot, because that's the Salamanders rule. Even though I had told him that, it just still kind of surprised him, and it did help that they killed, I think, 6 of the plague bearers on their own. So I'm not saying that they were worthless, but I don't know if we're going to do that. I think we could just fit a 3-man Eradicator squad in the Land Raider alongside the Blade Guards, so maybe we do that. And then we get some jump intercessors or some scouts. We need to start controlling movement and start move blocking more and more. As I'm learning more about this game, I'm seeing the necessity of controlling movement and restricting what my opponents can do. So we'll see how that goes in terms of my list. And as far as news goes, folks, I know this isn't exactly news, but after my first game, which I did lose to my first opponent, who was playing Tau, of course, that's the first game shouldn't be counted totally against me, just like the first 6 games shouldn't be counted totally in my favor if I win them, because my opponents are mostly taking it easy on me. We're just learning, they're helping me with mechanics. They probably could have done a few gotchas that I would have no hope against if they didn't warn me about, etc. The thing that I'm encouraged about this, folks, because I'm not saying that I'm just so good and I deserved all the wins, because I don't think that's the case. I think my opponents could have, like I said, gotcha'd me. If they really wanted to beat me, they probably could have, but they turned it into a good experience, and they're wonderful for that. I am eternally thankful. I will say, though, it's a good sign that my list is able to still compete, because those guys still would have taken the win against me if, certain things had gone in their favor, and I was able to shut those key components down. And so either the list is doing well, or I think my playing is also starting to get better, recognizing different situations and being able to, force my opponent into certain plays. And it's nice. I mean, do I expect to just win all my games moving forward? Obviously not. But it's an encouraging sign is all. And for those of you who have not watched my channel before now, just as a reminder, or I guess you wouldn't know if you haven't seen my channel before, but this is just an FYI. This is all building up for the October Open, which is, as you might imagine, in October. I'm going to be going to other major tournaments eventually. The ones in the Denver area obviously have my preference and priority. If we can grow this channel a little bit more and I start getting some, earning some ad revenue, then maybe we can start getting to other bigger places eventually. But guys, thank you all so much for watching. Please remember to hit that thumbs up button. It really helps the channel. Make comments, help us with the algorithm. Would really appreciate it. But more than anything, guys, thank you all once again so much for watching. And remember that if you didn't hear it from me, very possibly heresy. Take care, everyone.